Hello and welcome to episode 35 of the podcast. My name is Mel and I am a yarn dyer living on the Orkney Islands off the north coast of Scotland. Now, if you are a new viewer, then hello, and if you're a returning viewer, then welcome back. And as you can see, I'm in a completely different location again. That's because I've been spending a few days at Mum's house, so I'm taking the opportunity to record now whilst I have some fairly good light in here, rather than waiting until I go back home, and it can be quite dark in my house normally. Now I have one finished object, 2 works in progress, and kind of a top-up project, kind of. But I will start with my finished object first for this episode. I forgot to mention, but this is a crafting podcast, primarily knitting, so if you're new here, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. And yeah, so I have finished my carved pullover, which I am wearing, and I will stand up as best I can considering how I have my camera balanced today, and to show you the finished result of this project. Oh, I'm going to struggle because I'm right against the sofa here. As you can see, it is a jack-o'-lantern face sweater, and yeah, I have made it cropped, so it's kind of, well, there's my waist, so it's slightly below waist length, which works perfectly when wearing a dress, but I guess would also work really nicely over a shirt and jeans. I have made the sleeves full length, whereas the pattern is 3/4 sleeves, and I have made it slightly oversized rather than really fitted, which is as the pattern would be normally too. I'm really happy with this project. I have blocked it, other than the last couple of inches at the bottom, including the rib, which I will have to do when I get home. I had blocked the rest of the sweater before I came away. The pattern, where is the pattern? The pattern is by Emily Haver, and it is the carved pullover, and Emily Haver is known as Real Big Stitch on social media, and I'm really happy with it. It is a DK weight yarn, which is what the pattern is for, and I've knit it at a slightly different gauge because the gauge for this sweater is quite tight. Using a DK weight yarn at 24 stitch gauge, 24 stitches by 34 rounds over 4-inch, to me is quite dense for a DK weight yarn, and I didn't want it that dense. So what I've done is a 21 stitch gauge, 32 rounds, and I have used a 3mm needle to do that. And I used a 3mm needle to do everything: the rib, at the collar, and the sleeves, and the bottom of the sweater. The yarn I've used, where is my project bag? The yarn I've used is my leftover yarn from doing my arboreal sweater, and it is Drops Soft Tweed in the colourway Carrot Cake, which is a number 18, and the base is, find it, 50% wool, 25% alpaca, and 25% viscose. Oh, we're out of focus. 25% viscose, and I'm really pleased with it. I did my arboreal sweater on a looser gauge than this, which I love too, and on this slightly denser gauge it works really nicely as well. It kind of has a strange feel when you're knitting with it. I suspect because of the viscose, it's kind of got almost a papery feel to it, but it makes a really nice fabric, especially after it's been blocked. It just I don't know, it just has a really nice feel to it. So I'm really happy with it. I'm a little bit warm, so I might be taking it off shortly. I've done, what have I done? I've done 1x1 rib on the cuffs, and I made the sleeves slightly looser. I had to knit these about 3 times to get them just how I wanted, and they have come to kind of knuckle length. I was a bit worried I'd have to redo the cuffs because I thought I'd made them too tight, but after blocking they've kind of bloomed and they fit really nicely now. And what else? The bottom rib I changed to a 1x1 broken rib, which I'm not sure if it's going to focus very well, but I do, there we go, but I do like a broken rib for a bottom a bottom band, for a waistband, because it makes the sweater hang straight rather than cinching in. I think there's a place for cinching in at the waist, especially on a fitted garment. This pattern, if it had been knit as designed, which is kind of to come in at the waist quite snugly, a fitted waistband is perfect for that. But for this, I wanted it to hang straight so that over a dress it wouldn't pull in, it would just hang, and then you'd get the flare of the skirt. Because I don't wear a lot of kind of fitted dresses, I like a bit more of a kind of a flared dress, so I didn't want to lose that flare. What else can I say about this sweater? I kept the neckline. The neckline I was concerned with. I was worried this was going to be too high. It's not too bad. I have blocked it. It does still come right up here, and I have quite a princess neck. Other than that, I did some short row shaping at the back, which is not in the pattern, but I wanted to try and raise the back up a little bit. It still could do with kind of raising a little bit, and just kind of sitting there would be better, but it could be just the way it's sitting on the dress that I'm actually wearing. I love this lacework design on this sweater. Let me take this off and I can show you a little bit better. Okay, so I don't have to stand up to show you now. The lace, it's really simple and really satisfying. I love it. It's a shape, it wasn't quite ready for Halloween. It was ready a couple of days after, but I was really pushing it to get it finished on time. But at least it's ready for next year, and I'll still wear it all year round anyway, so I'm not too bothered about that. But yes, I'm really happy with it. And the yarn has this lovely tweed in it. It's kind of a multicoloured tweed with little orange and red and little blue, purpley blue flecks in it, which is really nice. So it's not just a flat colour, which I really love. But at the same time, it isn't kind of... A lot of tweedy yarns have very distinct flecks, which I really, really love. But sometimes you just want a yarn that has kind of an overall colour, but with just a little variation. It's one of the reasons I really love a good semi-solid yarn. I just love that kind of... I'd say texture, but it's not quite the right word, but it does kind of give a feel of texture to a garment. So that is my finished object for this episode. I think that's everything about this project, so this can now go in my wardrobe. So I guess the next question is, did I finish my Halloween socks in time? And the answer is no. I wish I had, but I will be wearing them as soon as they are finished. I have finished one whole sock in this fabulous yarn, which I'll talk about in a moment, and in this fabulous pattern, which has got these bands, which I'll also show you a little bit better in a moment, on the sock. It kind of, they stripe up in a diagonal. I have done my typical vanilla sock, but with the added pattern added to it. So Turkish cast on, toe up, heel flap gusset kind of toe up version. I have done I have partridge heel turn, and just a stockinette on the heel flap. And I have done a 2x2 rib, slightly shorter because I made the ankle slightly longer and didn't need a longer cuff as I would normally. So the yarns, well, the contrast is just a yarn that I dyed up to go along with the main yarn that I bought at Perth, which is by Marcus of Fibre Punk, and it is in the Elphabars Knickers colourway, which is this fabulous merino nylon base, which I absolutely adore. Speaking of which, my Halloween nails are still hanging in there. I'm really pleased with them. Okay, so you can see the spiral effect of this better if I take it off the sock blockers as it moves up the sock. Like that, it spirals, and I'm going to make a Christmas version, hopefully this year. And on the bottom, I have done I have partridge slip stitch on the ball of the foot too, because I wear through my socks here predominantly. Sometimes a bit here, but mostly here. And yeah, really pleased. I have started working on the second sock, and I have got so far. This bit is always the longest for me on a merino sock because I don't like doing this bit. It's not so bad, it just feels like, it's kind of like like having second sock syndrome, I imagine, or when people say they have an issue with sleeve island, as in the sleeves of a garment, which doesn't really bother me on a garment. They seem to go so much quicker than the body, so I don't know why sleeves seem to take longer for other people, because for me they seem to go faster. But this part on a sock bugs me, or this part on a slip stitch ball of the foot sock seems to take forever, or I just kind of put off doing it. That's the problem. I have a little wee pumpkin stitch marker on there, and I have lost one of these off another stitch marker somewhere in my house. I need to find that when I get home. And yeah, I'm actually knitting these magic loop, which I wouldn't normally, but the pattern was just easier to knit with straight needles rather than my little tiny wee 9-inch circulars, which I would normally knit socks upon. So yes, when I get home I will be working on these and get these finished so that I can wear them. I have done a 60 stitch sock, which is kind of what I normally do, but these are coming up a little bit snug, and I suspect that's because I'm knitting magic loop, which I tend to be tighter at knitting than on my 9-inch circulars, but they still fit perfectly fine. They're just not as loose as I would normally knit them. But the pattern is a 15 stitch repeat, so it would have been a little bit awkward. Well, maybe not. I could have added an extra stitch in between each swirl, which maybe I will do with my Christmas version, but I believe the yarn for that is, or the yarn I'm planning on using, I think it's West Yorkshire Spins, which I think is slightly thicker, so they will probably come up a little bit bigger anyway, so we'll just have to wait and see. The pattern that I used is called, I have it here, but I can't really show the pictures very well, so I shall pop a picture up on the screen here, but it is the Anastasia socks. And who was this by? Does it have the name on here? Pepperknit Anastasia socks, but the photos on the pattern is like teeny weeny and in black and white, so photo should be up here. I am trying to fly through things because I need to leave quite soon. I have to obviously drive to catch the boat because I have to catch a ferry, so I'm trying to fly through this as quickly as possible, so I do apologise. Next up is a object that was finished 4 years ago that I've worn once for good reason, and I am re-knitting, and that is the Through the Stones Gauntlets by Carol McCarthy, which is this pattern. I can't remember if this is a free one on Ravelry or not, but it is based on the arm warmers that Claire wears in the first series of Outlander, and they're not kind of a wristy, they don't have thumb holes or things like that, they just kind of go over the arms and kind of cover up to the knuckles. Now I knit these in 2018 and I did make them into wristies, but the problem was I knit them too tight, on too tight a gauge. So this is one of the original gauntlets, which you can see isn't really an arm warmer, but it does kind of come down the knuckles and it does fit, but they're not comfortable, because although they fit, you know, they kind of like, you have to like kind of pull them on, and they're just not comfortable, probably because of the cabling on the back as well. So I have only worn them once, maybe twice at best, which is a real shame because I gave my other charcoal arm warmers to my husband, which he wears in the garden. They were like an acrylic ones that I have had for years, and I thought I could replace them with these. So a few days ago I frogged out the second one completely, ripped everything out, which I hadn't realised how long it would take to rip out cabling with a woolly wool. So yeah, it took rather a long time, but I did re-knit the, I'm trying to remember which way around this goes, re-knit the second one. So this is a finished the new finished one, and I have used a different size needle. So these ones, which I will put on the other arm, this is going to get confusing. These ones, the original, this one, the new one. Big difference in size. This was knit on a 4.5mm needle. I don't know what I was thinking, with an Aran weight yarn, and this was on a 6mm needle. So you can kind of see they're quite a bit different. And I haven't bothered with the thumb hole with this. I've just left as the pattern, which is fine. It's really, really comfortable. And I think if I'd put a thumb hole in, it would have been quite a lot of bulky yarn. Well, I suppose I could have knit like that. Maybe I could have, maybe I might still do that. We shall see. But yeah, it's just kind of flares, because it's just kind of ribbed there, and then it's got the cabling there, and then flares at the bottom. They're really comfortable, or this one is anyway. Yeah, 4.5mm, too tight on an Aran weight, a chunky Aran weight, and 6mm worked out really nicely. You can kind of see the big difference if I take them off, just how different they are in length, and not so much in width, but you can kind of see how much difference they are in length. The yarn that I used is, we've got an awful lot of drops here today. It is Drops Alaska in the colourway number 5, which I think is charcoal or anthracite, something like that. But it is a kind of a heathered black, and yeah, so that's them. One of them finished. So when I get home, I need to rip out this one to make it the same as this one. Although this didn't take long, it only took a day to knit this. And I hate knitting cables, but it's such a simple cable pattern, this one. It's literally only one cable stitch that you, not stitch, but one cable pattern that you have to remember. And it only happens kind of here a couple of times and here a couple of times. So it's really, really simple. So I can highly recommend that pattern. Okay, so that leaves me one item, and this is not really a finished item. Well, I suppose it is. I finished the item back in February, but it needed that little something something. So this is a hat I made back in February that was short of this big fluffy fella on the top, a pom-pom. I cannot remember the pattern for this, so I will pop the name up on the screen. But I knit this in February for the winter, obviously, the end of February. I mean, when else would you knit a winter hat? But I held fire on doing the pom-pom. I was very nervous about it because the red yarn that I used for this is a skein of my own hand spun yarn, and I don't know, I was just nervous about chopping it up into little bits, basically. I basically used all that was left after knitting the hat, which wasn't a lot actually to knit the hat. The grey is Gilead yarn, and I'm really happy with that Gilead yarn. I have loads of this left. It used hardly any yarn, this hat, and I think there will be, well, there'll be project notes in my Ravelry page for it, because I can't remember the needle size or anything. It was just the pom-pom I needed to make. So if I pop this on, can see that pom-pom looks really, a really nice big fluffy pom-pom. I'm really, really happy with it. I spent ages making that the other day. I've been quite productive whilst I've been here. So I made it so that I can wear it kind of like a winter beanie sort of hat, but also can be worn kind of slouchy depending upon how I'm feeling. So yes, I made a pom-pom, and I made it by wrapping the yarn, instead of round 2 pieces of cardboard with a hole in the middle, which is how I was taught as a child, and I've hated making pom-poms ever since, is I wrapped the yarn around 2 tubes. In fact, I used a tube of baking powder and a tube of bicarbonate of soda, held them together and wrapped the yarn around them too, and then just kind of tied through the middle. Then I got 2 like disc things and like squashed the pom-pom like between 2 things, and then trimmed all around the edge to make it nice and dense and fluffy. I will try and remember to post the video, the link for the video where I got the tips to making pom-poms down below, because it is brilliant. And look how lovely and fluffy and tidy that pom-pom is. It does use a little bit more wastage, but yeah, nicer pom-pom. And I've just kind of sewn, well, obviously sewn the ends. I left them nice and long through, but then I've just kind of tied it in a little bow. So if I need to wash the hat, I can untie it, unthread it, and take the pom-pom off so that I won't ruin the pom-pom, because pom-poms and washing is kind of like washing teddy bears. They don't mix very well. So I think that's everything, which is good, because I need to get ready to go out now and put all this contraption back that I've had to set up for this camera. So I would say there isn't a lot of life stuff to tell, other than the fact that I've been here at Mum's, and I don't think there's anything really new. Vlogtober was obviously just finished, and I have a couple of videos that I want to record in November, which are supplementary to the podcast. So hopefully those will be going up before too long. And yep, hopefully this one is not too long. So I shall see you on the next episode, and yeah, bye bye.